These are beautiful silks from China, and back in the days of Marco Polo, it took a 2-year round trip to get things like these to Western Europe, along what was known as the Silk Road. Now, of course, it's much faster, and it's getting quicker and easier still, thanks to the new Silk Road, or as it's called in Beijing, the Belt and Road Initiative.
The Belt part of this strategy is all about developing land routes, connecting China with Central Asia and Europe. And the road part isn't a road at all. It's actually the maritime trade routes between China and other parts of Asia, and as far away as Africa. China is building or funding infrastructure right across the Belt and Road. It's one of the biggest infrastructure projects in history. It covers more than 68 countries, including 65% of the world's population. The scale and scope of the Belt and Road Initiative is staggering. Estimates of the cost varies, but over $300 billion have already been spent, and China plans to spend around $1 trillion more in the next decade or so. The only way to truly appreciate the scale and the ambition of Belt and Road is to see it. One small part of this is a new motorway linking the east coast of China to the Russian port of St. Petersburg. It's over 5,000 miles long, and it's recently been finished. Passing right through the centre of Kazakhstan, it's knocked 35 days off the travelling time from end to end. The Kazakhstan section alone has cost around $5.6 billion. There's a similar story in Kenya. Travel between Nairobi and Mombasa used to take 10 hours, but a rail link with Chinese money means the journey now takes just 5. There are stories like this all over the world as Belt and Road delivers railways, roads, ports and airports. There are oil and gas pipelines, wind farms and bridges.
So why is China doing all of this? Well, there's a clear economic reason. President Xi wants to position China in the heart of the world's commerce as China enters its next stage of development.
In the first decade alone, it's expected to boost cross-border trade by an extraordinary $2.5 trillion. Belt and Road is expected by many to also give a boost to China's neighbours, which in turn can create stronger demand for Chinese exports. There are many supporters for Belt and Road, not least from the countries that are benefiting, and there are business opportunities for companies outside of China. These new airports need designing, and they also need new planes. New buildings need lifts. A new transport system needs trains. And these aren't going to come from China or Chinese companies. But there are also people who question China's motives. After all, there's no such thing as a free lunch. The timing of Belt and Road is what's raising many concerns. It comes as China increasingly flexes its military muscle and ramping up its claims in the South China Sea. And it comes at a time when the US seems to be pulling back from its leading global role on issues like free trade and climate change. China's no stranger to wall building. But at a time when the US is putting up barriers to trade, China is looking to push outward. So is China seeking to become the world's new superpower? A lot of people fear that's the case. Belt and Road is a way of exporting not just Chinese goods, but also Chinese influence, soft power to the world.
Just look at El Salvador. It's a tiny dot on the map, but an important one. Its government used to have diplomatic relations with Taiwan, but has just switched allegiances to Beijing. The extraordinary opportunities offered by Belt and Road were arguably too good to resist.
Some are saying that China is buying influence, and it's not a new suggestion. That China is lumbering poor countries with huge debts for all this new infrastructure, debts they can't possibly hope to pay off. In Sri Lanka, that's already happened. Unable to pay back its loans, the government has signed over its new port in the south to China. A quest to shift the world's centre of gravity, debt colonialism, insulting, debt-trapped diplomacy, runs counter to the EU agenda for liberalising trade, a new version of colonialism. Some of these criticisms and doubts come from the highest level, and there's unease amongst the EU and the G12 that Italy has signed a Belt and Road Agreement with China. Well, China is adamant its intention is not to challenge the current world order. It says we're all in the same boat, and we should therefore be rowing in the same direction. What we used to call a win-win situation. Yet China knows these concerns are real, and they take them seriously. President Xi has responded by saying Belt and Road is not a new version of the Marshall Plan, in which the US provided funding to revive Europe's economies following the Second World War. Nor, he says, is it a Chinese conspiracy.
Overall, the jury's still out. This might just be the biggest boost to global trade we've ever seen, and could lift millions of people around the world out of poverty. Or it could shift the global balance of power for the coming century. Or maybe, just maybe, it's both.